Was Mariah Carey's Christmas ad for Sephora out of touch and tone deaf considering the current economic crisis we are in as a country? Absolutely. However, was Mariah Carey wrong in saying in that commercial that you can't cancel Christmas? Absolutely not. And let me tell you why. Because one thing's for certain and two things for sure. Capitalism is king in this country. And no matter what financial situation a lot of people find themselves in, millions of Americans go into debt over the holidays, spending money they don't have and putting it on credit just to buy gifts and make Christmas happen. So at the end of the day, while the commercial may have been tone deaf and not very timely considering the financial crisis we are in as a country, you can't cancel Christmas because in America, capitalism is king. Let's talk about it. Aloha, beautiful humans. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome back if we've been locked in. My name is Sasha, and today we're talking about the backlash Mariah Carey, but more specifically, Sephora is getting in response to the Christmas ad that they recently put out. Now, for this video, we are absolutely in our Christmas jammies because you can't do a video about Christmas and not be in the spirit. If I had it my way, as soon as Halloween was over, Christmas decorations would be up. And if I was not married, if I lived alone, Christmas decorations would already be up. Matter of fact, I floated the idea to Snow Bay over the weekend, like after Halloween. I was like, okay, we should put up the Christmas decorations. But he's one of those people who feels very strongly about Christmas decorations not going up until after Thanksgiving, which is so annoying. So in this video, we're getting into the spirit and we just have my Christmas jammies on. And if we've been locked in for a minute, you may actually recognize these jammies because these jammies are what I wore in my Christmas vlog, or it was a blog. I guess it was like, yeah, my Christmas blog when I was in Nigeria for Christmas last year. I'm not going to be in Nigeria for Christmas this year because I'm doing Christmas with my in-laws. However, fingers crossed, I will be back in Nigeria for December. So drop down in the comments and let me know if you're going to Dirty December. If your December is going to be very dirty, let me know. I'm really thinking about it. I'm probably going to go. I'm trying to get my older sister to come with me because my other siblings don't want to go. So I'm trying to get my older sister to go with me. And even if she doesn't want to come, I'm probably just going to go by myself. So anyways, yeah. So if you like clicked on this video and you're like, ooh, those jammies look familiar, it's because I had them on last year. I can't believe it's been almost a year since I've been in Nigeria. Like, it doesn't feel like a year, but I'm really excited to go back. I'm really excited to go. But anyways, let's talk about the Sephora ad. Y'all know that not only am I a big words mean things person, I am also someone who feels very strongly about people going straight to the source and seeing what it is for themselves before giving an opinion. My intention is to include the ad in this video. However, copyright with YouTube is a little bit funny sometimes. Some things get copyrighted, some things don't. So if I get a copyright strike, I'm just going to drop it into the comments or into the caption, the link where you can go see the ad for yourself. So assuming I don't get a copyright strike on this and the ad stays in the video, this is the ad.
Halloween slate, but now it's spill the tea. Who's the thief?
Busted! Bad news, Mariah Carey. The elves are striking this year. Elf revenge for putting us through holiday hell. Santa's helper quit. I'm pawning all this so I can afford elf therapy.
That's my blush, elf boy.
Your lipstick? I'm taking it. Christmas, it's canceled. No bells, no cheer, no glam. Bye, sweetie.
You can't cancel Christmas.
Any last words?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a snowman. Great.
We are living in an age where everything is intentional. There are no mistakes. Marketing is a billion-dollar industry. Everything is intentional. What we are seeing, what we are taking in terms of media, advertisements, podcasts, books, etc. Everything is political and everything is intentional. We are living in a climate where marketing is a billion-dollar industry and you are being sold to and advertised to every single time you turn on the TV, you turn on the radio, you hop on social media, you get on the internet. There are ads everywhere. There is market research being done to sell to you. So none of this is a mistake. So upon watching the ad for the first time, if you're not looking at it with a critical eye, you just see Mariah Carey, it's time. P.S. Her voice still sounds so good. I saw her live in was it last year? I think it may have been last year. Honestly, time is flying by so quickly. I cannot believe we're in November already. So I want to say it was last year. One of my girlfriends, like we've been friends since we were like 9, 10 years old. She wanted to go to Vegas for her birthday. So we went to Vegas. We had a time. It was so much fun. But we saw Mariah Carey. The mic was on. It was amazing. So y'all don't be sleeping on her voice. Baby girl still sounds good. But anyway, so you see the ad and you just see, if you're not watching it with the critical eye, you see Mariah Carey come out. It's time. She does her thing, but she can't do her thing because the production goes down. She's like, wait a minute, what's going on? You see an elf walking away from the set with Sephora in his hand. And she's like, boy, what are you doing? And he's like, I am stealing all of this. I'm going to sell this. I'm going to pawn this so I can afford therapy. And I'm boycotting Christmas. And Mariah Carey's like, boy, you ain't boycotting nothing. Bring your ass over here. You ain't boycotting nothing. You cannot boycott Christmas. Turns him into a snowman. She hops on her sleigh and then she goes and she gives out gifts and all is well in the world. Everybody gets their Sephora gifts and everybody is beautified. Their skin looks amazing and they go home happy. That is the premise of the commercial. I feel like in any other climate that we are in, people would have watched that commercial, really leaned into the nostalgia of Mariah Carey, Queen of Christmas, like, I don't want a lot for Christmas. You know, Mariah Carey's the Queen of Christmas. We would have all leaned into the nostalgia. People would have been like, oh, I need to get this from Sephora, this, that, and the third. They're actually having their savings event right now. I already shopped the savings event. So yeah, and we would have gone about her day. We would have laughed and everybody would have went home happy. That would have been the case in any other political climate that we are living in. However, and I won't even say political climate we are living in any other economic environment we are living in, that would have been fine. Everything would have been Gucci. However, there were so many things about that commercial that were like, ooh. Even I immediately watched it and I was like, ugh. Okay, girl, like, oh, you in danger, girl. Girl, the people finna boycott you. And sure enough, I get on social media over the weekend and I see the backlash as to be expected because the ad was tone deaf. There are several things in that ad that were just immediately stood out to me. And I was like, immediately no, like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So first and foremost, you had the elf, in my personal opinion, and this is how I am interpreting the commercial. So jump down in the comments and let me know if you are interpreting the commercial or the ad any differently, because here's what I got from it. Mariah Carey obviously represents Christmas, gift giving, the capitalistic side of Christmas. You're at Sephora, you want people to shop at Sephora, those are the gifts. So she obviously represents Christmas as a whole, the gift-giving aspect of Christmas. Then the elf is depicted as the working class because the elves are who create Christmas. All of the gifts that are coming from the North Pole, the elves are pulling that together. So Santa gets all the glory of Christmas, just like the CEOs and the bosses and the upper management and the C-suite, you know, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs when he was the head of Apple, you know, all the faces of these companies that you attribute to who is actually doing the work, who is making it happen. The CEOs, the owners, they are the faces of these companies. They're the ones who receive all of the adulation when it comes to all of these companies, the way Santa receives all of the adulation when it comes to Christmas. However, it is the employees at these companies who are the ones creating Christmas. So behind Mariah Carey defrosting and putting on the Christmas magic, she is not the one who is creating Christmas. It is the employees. And in this case, the elf is the employee. So the elf essentially depicts the working class who in this climate, if we tie this to America, it is the working class who are the ones who are being threatened with the SNAP benefits being cut, who are going to be the ones to most negatively feel the impacts of if we get rid of Medicare and Medicaid. All of these economic, the tariffs, the increasing cost of living, the price of gas, the price of groceries. It is the middle class, it is the working class or the lower middle and the working class who are the ones who are most notably being impacted by all of these cuts that are being made as a result of the measures that this administration, these policies that this administration is putting forward, they are most negatively and adversely affecting the working class, who many of them cannot afford the basic necessities to live their lives. And so you have this elf who is the working class, who is not making enough money to essentially afford therapy. So you have him stealing from his employer, in this case, Mariah Carey, as she is depicted as Christmas or Sephora. And he is stealing with the intention of pawning all of these things, all of these beauty products, so he can afford healthcare, so he can afford therapy. And again, in any other context, that might be funny, haha, but we are living in a time where mental health services, I personally am the belief that everyone should be receiving therapy, that medical care in the form of therapy, that mental health and mental wellness in the form of therapy, I firmly believe it is something that should be accessible to everyone, but it's not. So you, especially the working class, so you have people who are now in real life. I saw so many videos from people on TikTok talking about the ways in which they would be negatively impacted if Medicare and Medicaid was cut. One diabetic, she was like, I will quite literally die because Medicare is what covers the bulk of my medication. And if I don't have my medicine, I can't afford my medicine on my salary. I have a college degree. I am working. I'm a salaried employee, and I still cannot afford medicine. I still cannot afford my insulin. And if I do not have my insulin, I will die. And so you have people who are working, but who cannot afford basic health care. You have people who are working, but they can't afford housing, so they're living in their car. This is the reality of millions of Americans. And so when you have an ad, when you have a billion-dollar business like Sephora depicting the working class as stealing and then pawning off what they're stealing from their place of work to get therapy, it's not funny. It's tone deaf, and it's extremely insensitive. It's extremely insensitive. Another thing that stood out to me as tone deaf was her essentially making fun of like boycotting. Oh, you can't boycott Christmas. Right now, we are in a climate. You have the No Kings protest. You saw Target get taken down earlier this year with their boycotts. People were boycotting Starbucks. So we are now living in a time where we finally understand that a lot of these brands and companies and businesses, they do not care about their customers. They only care about the bottom line. So the only way the customers can let these brands and businesses know to respect them or to value them is through the dollar. And so the most effective boycotts nowadays are not necessarily people getting out into the streets, although that is one way of protest, which I will never knock. A more impactful way, though, or the ways in which people are able to most safely protest nowadays, I will say, is economically. So you have people boycotting in means of protest of everything that is happening. You have an elf who is boycotting an employee, a blue collar, a working class employee who is essentially saying, I am boycotting this. I'm boycotting and I'm putting an end to my exploitation as an employee, but also as a consumer, because I am employed at this place and I cannot afford healthcare. So I am boycotting Christmas. I'm boycotting capitalism essentially, and I'm out of here. Something that also made the comment about you can't strike so insensitive is the fact that very often striking was the only way for a lot of employees in certain environments to get better rights, to get better treatment, to get better wages. And again, we are living in a climate right now that is economically very hostile towards employees. And this is not just white collar employees, but blue collar employees as well. Striking and boycotting are often a last resort. These are the cries and these are the voices of a people who have been silenced but are effectively trying to make changes that will improve their quality of life and their working experience. And not just only their working experience, but often safety and equity in wages. I just wanted to put that in post-production. And then after she says, oh, you can't boycott Christmas, very flippantly, she turns him into a snowman, an inanimate object, essentially robbing him of his autonomy and his voice, his right to protest. And so it's like squashing. That's what you see happening with the middle class, with the working class, with the working poor, with people who are boycotting. Their voices are being squashed. They are being labeled as terrorists. They're being labeled as un-American. They're not being taken seriously in what they're protesting. And then their voices are being taken away as they are painted out as to be some type of agitator or unserious or lazy or spoiled, instead of confronting the issue of what they are actually protesting. Stagnant wages, an increasing cost of living, an environment in which people are working full time, but they cannot afford basic necessities such as housing and food. The food scarcity, food insecurity, these are all policy issues, but we have made them personal failings. And so we put the onus on people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps instead of recognizing that poverty is a choice this administration and the powers that be, instead of recognizing it as a choice these people are making. So when people use their voices to do the one thing they can and protest, their autonomy is taken away. Their words are dismissed, devalued, and in this particular case, they are turned into snowmen who don't have a voice and who will melt at the end of the season, essentially also saying that workers, that elves, that the working class are replaceable. So not only are you overworked and underpaid, you are replaceable, and we don't value you. We don't value your voice. We don't value your struggles. We don't even value the things that you are boycotting. We don't value your contributions, and we don't value the seriousness of these allegations and your claims, these claims that you're making. And if you want to take it to a darker route, turning him into a snowman, not only does it strip him of his voice, that's a very violent act in itself. Silencing someone in that way by taking away their personhood. In this case, the elf is depicted as a human. So taking away his personhood, his humanity, stripping him of that, turning him into an inanimate object, a snowman, something that will eventually melt away and die out. It can also be seen as not just violent, but also punishment for speaking out and punishment for boycotting at all, having the audacity to go against the system of Christmas, in this case, capitalism. The working class being depicted as the elves, they are the ones who are making Christmas. They are the ones who are making magic. Without the elves, Christmas doesn't exist. Very much so in the ways that without the working class, without blue collar workers, without white collar workers too, without the working class, without the middle class, there can be no upper middle class. There can be no billionaires and multimillionaires. All of this collapses and falls apart. However, there is no recognition for the working class. In this case, the elves, there's no acknowledgement of all the sacrifices that they are putting in, how hard they're working, and cannot afford basic therapy, despite the fact they are doing all of the labor. They receive none of the rewards, none of the benefits, and all of the glory goes to Santa, or in this case, Mariah Carey, as depicted as Christmas and capitalism as a whole. So these were all intentional choices made by Sephora. This was no mistake. Like I said, we are living in a climate where everything is marketing. Everything is intentional. And to a certain degree, I think a lot of companies, when they find themselves in this level of backlash, we are now living in a climate where attention is currency, energy is currency. I say this all the time. So it is very important to be intentional about what you're giving your time and your energy. And when you focus on the negative, you are still giving them energy. You are still giving them attention. So Sephora is not, I don't think Sephora in the long run, even though this ad is very tone deaf, negative attention, negative publicity is still publicity. It is still attention. If Sephora, however, is listening to their constituents and their customers and their target demographic and audience, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this video, I do think there are a few ways in which this commercial could be a little bit less tone deaf. Because, like I said, there is a time in which this would have just been funny, it would have just been cheeky, and everybody would have been like, oh, that's cute. The Queen of Christmas is back. We can officially start the holidays. This was very likely created, the mock-up of this, all of the filming was done, everything, the contracts were signed, everything was likely done before the totality of the past few horrible months of everything we've been seeing come down with this administration. The money has already been spent. The contracts have already been signed. Yes, they could have pulled the plug. They didn't. And so I think if Sephora is listening to their target demographic and audience, or listening to the backlash, and they were to go back to the drawing board on this commercial, I do think that there are a few ways this commercial could have been made better. I think instead of depicting the elf in the commercial as the working class who was quitting Christmas, I definitely think they could have just depicted Santa. Like, Santa is the one who is out all night on the sleigh. So put Santa in there. I think automatically that would have changed the energy of the commercial by putting Santa in there, basically in a position of saying, I quit. Because it's like, well, dang, nobody cares about the elves. Nobody cares if they're overworked, but Santa's overworked? Like, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. Let's think about this for a second. And then, like, you know, uplift Santa's spirits and make him realize that this is the reason for the season, and making sure everybody gets their gifts and Santa gets the gift of rest. Like, I don't know. I think I would have been easily turned around by that. I would have been like, yay, everybody gets what they want and Santa gets what he wants too. Santa gets a break for delivering billions of presents in one night to everybody across the country. Like, yay, Santa, everybody wins. I think another way in which, now that the cat is out of the bag though, and Sephora is not going to re-release or re-edit that commercial, I think another way that it could be better is to have actual sales. You know, like I said, I just shopped the Sephora savings event. As a Rouge, I get 20% off. I've spent an unreasonable amount of money at Sephora, and we're not going to talk about it in this video. But I shop the Rouge sale. I generally buy everything I need from Sephora as far as skincare in bulk. And I'll go into Sephora maybe once a week, once every other week. Like, I am in Sephora heavy. Sephora, call me. I am in Sephora heavy. So as someone who does shop at Sephora and who found that commercial extremely tone deaf, I think moving forward, a way that Sephora could kind of fix this is actually have a sale. Because 20% off in this economy, when you adjust for inflation, when you adjust for the increasing cost of living, when you adjust for the fact that the prices of a lot of these products has gone up, because I have noticed an increase and an uptick in some products that I used to get 3, 4, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they have steadily gone up over the years. And so instead of giving 20% off to Rouge, maybe bump it up to 30%. Now you're talking 40% would be very nice. You know, make the sale actually a sale. Give back, show the ways in which you are acknowledging what is happening in our current economic climate. Where are you donating to? Which organizations are you donating to? Are you donating to any charities? You know, Feeding America or local soup kitchens and pantries in certain communities? How are you helping? Because again, a lot of these companies, they only respond to economic boycotts. They only respond to their bottom line being stripped away. They only respond to the loss of revenue. Target, for example, they have been trying everything since February to bring back their target demographic, their core audience, and they're still struggling because they lost touch. They did not listen to their target demographic, and they felt it, and their target demographic responded with an economic boycott, which is the only way Target would be listening. And now it's a little too late, too little too late for Target. I've seen some videos come across my For You page talking about how if Sephora isn't careful, they're going to go the way of Target. And I don't necessarily agree with that for several reasons. When it comes to these controversies and how the companies and brands respond, a lot of people are past wanting an apology. Like Francesca Ramsey, she's created so many funny songs over the years to respond to so many missteps and just downright horrible situations and PR messes a lot of companies and influencers and content creators find themselves in. And one of the songs, one of the little jingles she's made is, instead of an empty apology, write a check. And I think it's so brilliant because we are tired of blanket apologies and, you know, these canned PR responses. Now, as people are boycotting economically with their dollars and letting their dollars speak for them, a lot of the ways in which people are wanting and expecting atonement from these companies is financially. So instead of apologizing, if Sephora receives all of this backlash and the backlash is coming from their core demographic and target audience, and they want to make it right, because I think that the only way they will be able to see the full impact of this backlash is at the end of Q4, when they're looking at their revenue from the holiday season. Did they make more than last year? Did they make less than last year? Can they specifically pinpoint it or attribute it to the economy and their target demographic being negatively impacted, or can they attribute it to the ad itself? Because here's the thing, not everyone is struggling. Matter of fact, I did a video about this on TikTok, so I'm just going to post my video here and then we'll springboard from there. The one thing that stood out to me the most in the Mariah Carey ad with Sephora that is causing all of this controversy, which I'm in the process of editing my YouTube video on, and I will probably have it uploaded tonight. But anyways, in the ads, Mariah Carey is essentially saying you can't cancel Christmas. And people are responding very negatively to it because of the current economic crisis that we find ourselves in as a country and how people are boycotting and how it is tone deaf. And while all those things are true, Mariah Carey was absolutely correct in saying you cannot cancel Christmas, because in America, regardless of how bad the financial climate, how bad the financial situation is, we are a country that subsists on credit, where people think nothing of putting anything on a credit card, and millions of Americans go into debt over Christmas. Here's the thing though, two things. One, Sephora's target demographic is young women between the ages of 24 and 35 who are either middle class or upper middle class. I cannot read all of the comments. However, looking at the people who have made videos about boycotting Sephora, how out of touch it is, how tone deaf it is, etc., they are not Sephora's target demographic or core audience. Sephora right now is having their savings event. It ends either the 10th or the 11th of November. And even in spite of the economic crisis we find ourselves in, there are people who are always going to make money for the small things, for skincare, for beauty, etc. Also, not everyone is struggling, and we all exist in our echo chambers on the internet. So if you are in a very specific demographic or living in an area, or the people and the content you are interacting with are people who are struggling, that's what your feed is going to feed you. However, that's not the case for everyone. So I would be really curious to see how Sephora makes out when it comes to their savings event. I wonder what the revenue is going to be like. And B, we live in an era where people are aware this is marketing. Marketing is a billion-dollar industry. Sephora is aware of what is happening in this current climate. They could have pivoted at any moment. However, even bad publicity, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Negative publicity is still attention. And nowadays, we are all aware that attention is currency. Even if you found the commercial tone deaf and out of touch, like an elf saying he was going to be pawning makeup and beauty products to afford therapy, not very timely. The thing is, there is all this talk about boycott. However, you can't cancel Christmas in America because this country runs on capitalism. So it will be very interesting to see Sephora's bottom line after the holiday season. If they are getting backlash from their core demographic and target audience, how they respond, whether they respond at all, I think that's for one. And then for two, how they respond will decide how overall they bounce back from this. Because like I said, I already shopped the sale. However, because I am aware of what is going on in this environment in our country, if you can shop the Sephora sale, you can afford to donate. And so that's what I did. Like I said in my video, not everyone is struggling. In fact, I did a video actually about this a few months ago, talking about certain trends that I've noticed in the beauty and lifestyle spaces that can be viewed as recession indicators. I talked about the lipstick index, which holds that as we get into recessions and economic downturns, we see more women going out to purchase lipstick. And now we see that extend to lip glosses, nail polish, these small little items that you can buy that are not necessarily breaking the bank, but also making you just feel good, feel pretty, and feel a little bit luxurious. As a beauty brand, Sephora is in a very precarious position at this time where they can find themselves being very negatively impacted if they are on the receiving end of a boycott, despite the lipstick index. Even looking at the lipstick index, because for the video that I did earlier that I referenced talking about beauty and lifestyle trends and the lipstick index, I did read a few articles saying that the lipstick index this time around, it may not necessarily be holding as we go into Q3, as we go into Q4. Well, we are already in Q4, but when I was reading these articles for the video that I did, it was in early Q3 or late Q2. So yeah, this could change. Where we were as an economy when I did that video is far removed from where we are now. The financial and economic climate in this country has gotten worse with every passing month. And so Sephora is in a very unique place right now. However, even if their core demographic comes out in backlash of the video, I honestly do not think Sephora will really feel the backlash financially because we are in a holiday season. And if it's one thing Americans are going to do, like I said in my video, is spend money. Millions of Americans go into debt every single year when it comes to the holiday season. The vast majority of Americans cannot afford a $500, $400 emergency. People are living paycheck to paycheck, and you have government employees, people who are making high five figures or even six-figure jobs. You have them lining up at food pantries because they have mismanaged their funds. And let me not even say mismanaged their funds, because I'm not in anybody's pockets. I'm not in anybody's bank account. I don't know anybody's financial situation. And again, we are living in a time where wages are stagnant, but the cost of living is going up as well as inflation. And so I'm not going to say anybody has mismanaged their funds, because people, you have doctors, you have engineers, you have lawyers, you have people with degrees and jobs which should position you to be making six figures and living comfortably. However, that is extremely hard to do when you take into account student loan debts, the cost of living, mortgages. There's just so much working against you now that even if you did everything right, even if you did what you were supposed to do, it is so much harder to make a livable wage and a comfortable wage and miss one or two or even three paychecks in this country without finding yourself in a very difficult financial situation. So while all of that is true, we are in the holiday season, and Americans, there are a lot of people who see no issue with putting things on credit. I did a video about this earlier this year about deleting your Klarna if you have Afterpay, if you are using any of those buy now, pay later loans or services, to delete them off of your phone or to your computer. But so many people, unfortunately, are caught up with this illusion of keeping up with the Joneses and trying to portray this lifestyle that they are not living. And the same comes with Christmas too. Like, I remember growing up, I'm so glad that I did not come up in the era of Christmas hauls, because there are people who will like literally live stream, not even just live stream it, but film, record, and then put on the internet everything they got for Christmas. And if you are somebody who is not secure within yourself, or you are someone who exists within scarcity mindset, you will see that and you'll start comparing what you got and say, oh, it's not enough. Like, I did not grow up with extravagant Christmases. The only Christmas that I remember that I got multiple, like tons of gifts, like loads of gifts. It was an amazing year for my siblings and I want to say it was 19 it was either 1996 or 1997. It was either the year we moved into a house, because we lived in an apartment until I was in the third grade. My parents bought a house when I was in the third grade. And so this was either my third grade Christmas or my fourth grade Christmas. I remember all of the gifts I got because it was so many things. I never had a Christmas like that before. I got a Barbie, the Barbie with the Shamu, the orca. I got this Winnie the Pooh doll and then a matching book bag. I got a Tamagotchi. I got Bonnie Bell chapsticks. Like, it was an amazing Christmas. We got so many gifts. We never had a Christmas like that before. And I don't think we ever had one like that afterwards. You know, I didn't grow up with extravagant Christmases. For my family, Jesus was very much the reason for the season. My parents are Catholic through and through. And so Christmas was spent in church. And then we're Nigerian, so we started going to a white garment church when I was in middle school. So we would go to Catholic church, we would stay there for an hour, and then on Christmas Day, we would go to the white garment church. We were there like for hours, and then we would come home. We would go to Christmas. When I got into high school, we started going to the Christmas Vigil Mass. So that, and I love the Christmas Vigil Mass. Like, that's still my favorite Mass. I don't go to church as much as I used to. Like, the last time I was in church was for my parents. They just celebrated their 40-year wedding anniversary, so I was in church for that. And then the last time was when I was in Nigeria last year. I went to church, and then before that, I can't even remember the last time I went to church. But growing up, like Jesus was very much the reason for Christmas. It was not about gifts. And so I did not, this Christmas haul shit, like it's absolutely crazy to me. We would go to Christmas vigil mass, wake up in the morning, open our gifts, have a nice little breakfast, maybe go to the white garment church. Like by the time I got into like high school, well, I won't say high school because you still didn't have no options. It didn't matter how old you were. If you were living in my parents' house, you were going to church, period. But when I got into college, I was able to make that choice. Like, okay, I'm not going. I'm not going to be in church for millions of hours on Christmas Day. Immediately, no. But yeah, Christmas was never this extravagant thing. Like Jesus was very much the reason for the season. That capitalism nonsense was not flying in our household. But when we got old enough to, buy Christmas gifts and the adults were making money, I'm one of 7. I have 4 sisters, 2 brothers, and then I was also buying for my parents. And so Christmas for my younger siblings, they probably have a different experience with Christmas because they had older siblings who were able to get them things. But my experience with Christmas through high school, I would even say till college, up until I was able to buy myself the gifts that I wanted to buy myself, it was never about the material things. And so it's crazy to me that that is what Christmas has always been for a lot of people. And it's gotten worse in the social media era, in the social media age, where you have people on the internet posting Christmas hauls. Like that shit is crazy to me. That is so wild to me. But again, if you have them, not everybody is struggling. So if you have the money, if you can ball outrageous, do it. And I honestly think when it comes to Sephora's target demographic and their audience, they are targeting middle class to upper middle class women between the ages of 25 and 34. So while yes, the middle class is struggling as a result of the economic crisis that we find ourselves in as a country, you still got like these little tweens up in Sephora. If this commercial dropped at any other time in the year under any other context, I don't think it would have made like any other context as far as outside of Christmas, right? Like outside of Christmas, they could, I don't know how they could rejigger it for another time of year. But I do think that if it dropped around any other time, Sephora may feel some backlash, but this is dropping around the holiday season. And a lot of Americans are very comfortable. We are a culture that is addicted to comfort. We are a culture of people who are comfortable putting things on credit. We are a culture of people who are comfortable living in debt. And so even if people are upset about this, some people will boycott, but other people will be like, that ain't got nothing to do with the price of tea in China. My niece or my son or my daughter wants products from Sephora or wants this from Sephora. I'm going to get it for them. And even though Sephora is not selling anything anybody needs, it's a want. And Christmas is all about wants. These are a few of my favorite things. Christmas is very wanty because Christmas is not about Jesus in this country. We are a country of fake Christians. Christmas is about capitalism. Christmas is about gifts. Christmas is about money. And so this is why when I see people saying that when I see people saying that Sephora is going to go the route of Target because of the backlash, I completely disagree for several reasons. One, because of the timing that this commercial was dropped. We are in the holiday season. People are just spending. Period. People are going to spend. Some people may spend less, but people will still spend. I know that I've seen on TikTok, there is a boycott, a holiday blackout, a holiday boycott where people people in the month of November and through January, you're basically skipping the holidays. I've seen some videos take off about that. But when it comes down to it, people do want to create magic. Christmas magic is very real. Like Christmas is my favorite time of the year. And it's not even for the gifts. It's about the magic. It's about the gathering. It's about the experiences, that warmth, that I just love Christmas time for those reasons. So it's not about, for me, it's not about the material things, but for a lot of people who are very materialistic or who feel compelled to provide this extravagant Christmas or keep up with the Joneses or flex for strangers on social media, they are going to continue to buy. Another reason why I don't think Sephora is going to go the route of Target is because Target made themselves a very inclusive brand, a very family-friendly brand, and that's where Target lost people. They lost what set them apart and what made them stand out, what made them appeal to their target, to their core demographic. even though their plans for these diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, they were set to end this year, they could have continued them. But instead, they very publicly announced an end to all of this right as the Trump administration was coming out and saying that they were going to be coming down on companies that were promoting DEI. And a lot of other companies followed suit very loudly, getting rid of their DEI programs and distancing themselves from diversity, equity, inclusion, representation, and Black-owned brands. Sephora never made themselves an inclusive brand. They never marketed themselves as an inclusive brand. They never marketed themselves as a family-friendly brand, although you have these little tweens in there. And you can't go to Sephora with your daughter or your niece or your goddaughter or your son or, whatever. You can go to Sephora with the family, and we do see a lot of kids in Sephora now. But for the most part, they were never family friendly. They were never appealing to all classes of people like Target was. Target was appealing to people of all socioeconomic statuses. You have the dollar bin right in front of the store. Sephora, the cheapest item there, yeah, you can get some Sephora branded things for like really inexpensive, like $4 or $8. But the average amount of money people are spending at Sephora, you could go in there for one thing and end up walking out having spent $50 or upwards of hundreds of dollars. Sephora is not necessarily a brand that has ever been extremely inclusive. Like, yes, they do have their Black-owned beauty, and they do a lot of initiatives for the different heritage months, Black History Month. They shout out their Black-owned brands. They shout out their women-owned brands. They shout out their clean beauty. Yes, they do all of those things. However, they've never led with that. They don't lead with the fact that they are an inclusive brand. They don't lead with the fact that they are an affordable business, because again, their target demographic and their target audience is middle class to upper middle class young women between the ages of 25 and 34. That is a very niche group of people. They are not and have never marketed themselves as an inclusive brand. When I have looked, I can't read all of the comments, but the videos that I saw of some people, yes, there were people in that demographic who were very upset, but there were just as many people who didn't really seem bothered by it, didn't really understand the outrage. And so we'll see. We'll see. I understand the backlash. I do understand that it was, and I do agree that it was very tone deaf. However, capitalism is king in America. Not only is capitalism king in America, there are going to be people who are always ready and prepared to trade in their values and their ethics and their belief systems for comfort and safety. And in this case, safety and comfort comes or means having a good Christmas, having gifts, buying all of the things that you want to buy and flexing for people. Capitalism is comfortable. We are a country that is addicted to comfort. There will be a lot of people who are willing to overlook a lot of things or say, oh, people are being dramatic, there's no need to boycott, and trade in their freedoms for their comfort, because nothing that is happening or nothing that has happened in the past few months have really impacted them or affected them in any tangible way that has moved them to not only care, but also feel like they need to take a stance against what is happening or boycott. And that's unfortunately the case for a lot of people. A lot of people do not care about things until and unless they are impacted. And is a tacky, out of touch, and tone deaf commercial really impacting anyone at a store like Sephora, where there's nothing you need from there and nobody is infringing upon your freedoms and your rights, turning this fictional elf into a snowman? No. And if I'm being totally honest, I think things like this, the backlash against things like this, I won't say it doesn't matter, but it makes it very hard to take people seriously when there are people who are actively and actually dying and having not only their freedom stripped away and their rights stripped away, but something as simple as, or not even something as simple, but something as so profound as basic needs like food, and that millions of people across America, children, the vast majority of people who rely on these benefits are children. People will equate that actual harm that's being done in real time to a tacky, tone-deaf commercial. And so I just think, this is just me, you don't have to shop at Sephora. But if you're going to visibly and vocally and loudly boycott Sephora, that's fine. What are you actively and actually doing when it comes to issues that are tangibly harming people? And I'm not saying you got to go out and put your body on the line and physically boycott in these streets and go to any No Kings protest. I'm not saying that. I just think it is very easy economically boycotting a place, saying you're not going to shop somewhere is very easy, super easy, probably the easiest thing you can do. And it's so funny because that isn't often, in a lot of cases, the most impactful way of boycotting, by simply not shopping somewhere or removing your dollars from that place. But if you have the dollars to put towards the causes that actually do matter, are you giving them as much time, energy, and resources as you give the low-hanging fruit? Just something to think about. Just something to think about. Just something to think about. Drop down in the comments and let me know your thoughts on this video. Did you see the Sephora ad? Did you think it was out of touch? Did you notice anything? Like, did it give you an icky vibe when you first saw it? Or did you watch this video and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, now I see it, now I see it. Drop down in the comments and let me know. Because like I said, everything nowadays, I won't say it is a dog whistle, but everything is intentional. We are living in a time where we are so politicized that it is increasingly becoming hard to take people at face value when they say things like, oh, I didn't know, or I didn't expect, and I didn't assume. It's like, we got to do more research, okay? We got to hold ourselves accountable and be aware of what we are messaging and what we are putting out there. But that's just me. Drop down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Help your girl out. By the end of the year, we have a 4,000 subscriber goal. So what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, okay? Please and thanks. Y'all stay safe out there. Happy holidays. We are officially in holiday season. I know this time of year can be very challenging for people, so protect your peace, protect your energy. You do not have to go out crazy and buy up all the things. A lot of the time, your presence can be somebody's present. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you're going to be in Nigeria in December. And until next time, y'all, peace out.